Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I have a new wall hanging pattern to share with you today. It's actually inspired by one of my previous quilts, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about both quilts and give you some ideas for your fall sewing. It's time to get started on that if you haven't already. Okay, so first I'm actually going to talk about my original Fall Dash quilt. I made this quilt in 2019 and it was a cover girl quilt for American Patchwork and Quilting that fall. I used all sorts of fabrics from my stash when I made this quilt. They are mostly fig tree, although I feel like there were a few other prints that were thrown in that were just in my scrap bin. But most of these prints were from older fig tree collections that were available back in 2019. So I know it might be hard to find them. But the quilt consists of leaf blocks, pumpkin blocks made with strips, and patchwork pumpkins, all inside of churn dash units. And so the quilt is called Fall Dash. And I did do a pattern for it. It is fat quarter friendly, and it finishes at 53.5 inches by 68.5 inches. Now for years, I have been wanting to make a wall hanging version of this quilt, and this summer I finally did it. Knowing that our Bountiful Blooms collection was going to be in stores very soon, I decided to make the Fall Dash mini quilt, which actually isn't a mini in terms of the word mini that you might think of, but it's actually a wall hanging, and it finishes at 33.5 by 33.5. Okay, and so what I did, I'm so happy with this quilt. I used all of our Bountiful Blooms fabrics, and I took the elements from my original Fall Dash, and I did something just a little bit different with the setting, but I'm really happy with this. So we still have the strip piece and the patchwork pumpkins, and they are set in the churn dash setting blocks. But then for the leaves, I just kind of left them on their own and did kind of a little mini chain that goes through. So I just really am happy with how this turned out, and I love the size. You could also easily make a table runner using these blocks, which would be super fun for fall right now, or you could also do a 4-block mini quilt, so a true mini using 2 pumpkins and 2 leaves and then just a border. But I'm really happy. Sometimes things take a while for me to get done. This had been on my list, as I mentioned, for a long time, but really happy to have it available now just in time for the fabric to hit the stores. The other thing that's good about this is that you can make all of the pumpkins and the leaf sections using a Bountiful Blooms charm pack. And so, or scraps if you're using fabrics from your stash. And so the pieces that you need to get that need a little bit bigger yardage, mostly 1/8 yards, are just the churn dash inner units and corners. And then this, I used a low volume print for the sashing, and just use the tone on tone for the inner border and for actually for all of the block backgrounds. And then use this beautiful blueprint, and I did do the gold plaid, and I cut the strips on the bias for the binding. And I want to show you, I also added, it's hard to tell because I used the same fabric for my quilt sleeve that I did for my backing fabric, but we actually do have a video on this if you want to watch. Whenever I make a quilt about this size, I generally do put a sleeve on it in case I'm going to hang it with a dowel through the back, just resting on a couple of nails. It just seems to give it more support than any other way. So I did go ahead and do a hanger on the back of this quilt. And the pattern is available now. It's shipping now in PDF, and we also have paper copies available, and we also have copies still of the original quilt. Okay, so that's it for my fall dash wall hanging, my fall dash mini wall hanging, and a little bit about my original fall dash quilt. I hope that if you enjoyed today's video, you will share it with a friend, hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for stopping by.